The topic of today, as you already know, is Muslim spirituality. And again, as I was trying to think of what is spirituality in Arabic, I was trying to think, what is the word we use for spirituality? And we don't exactly actually have a word. We might use Roohaniyat from Ruh, which is the soul or the inner self, but at the same time, maybe it's a borrowed word even, I don't know. So what's spirituality from the perspective of Islam? Remembering the true nature of the world, especially that it's passing, it's fleeting. And in a hadith, and you learned yesterday how the hadiths are constructed. So what are the two main parts of hadith? Do you remember? The two Arabic words? One is the matn and one is the isnad. So the isnad would be the Abdullah ibn Umar said, and then the matn, the body of the hadith itself, is the messenger of Allah took me by the shoulder and said, be in the world as though you were a stranger or a wayfarer. Abdullah ibn Umar used to say, at evening do not expect to live till morning, at morning do not expect to live till evening, take from your health for your illness, from your life for your death. So always be prepared. And this is a hadith that's narrated by Bukhari, and also you'll find it in your collection of hadith that you got. And the goal, God says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created man and jinn except to worship me. But then, of course, as human, we get distracted. So one should always, as a Muslim, and as Maria said, there are three dimensions of Islam. So the first one is Islam is submission to say, okay, I'll go to the gym and I'll try and see if I can exercise. And then Iman is like, okay, I'll do some exercise, but it's still hard. But I'm getting better at it. And then Ihsan is the third dimension we'll talk about today, is to acquire, a higher status. Hopefully, is to keep, doing all these rituals that they become second nature to you, and then they improve you as a human being. So one has to cultivate the right attitude toward God. There is a Qudsi hadith, and now you know that the Qudsi hadith are the ones that are, hadith of the Prophet, but they are from God. Qala Rabb, usually they start, or Qala Allah Ta'ala, but the wording is not Quran, so they are a separate category. So I'm according to my servant's expectation of me, and I'm indeed with him when he makes mention of me. You've read that one yesterday. If he remembers me secretly in his mind, I would likewise secretly remember him in my mind. If he makes mention of me in an assembly, I will make mention of him in an assembly far better than it. And if he draws nearer to me the distance of a handspan, I will draw nearer to him the arm's length. And if he draws nearer to me by an arm's length, I draw nearer to him by a fathom's length. And if he comes to me walking, I shall come running. So in other words, you initiate, and God is always waiting there to, build upon what you initiated. But you have to take the first step, because God is just, and He doesn't just discriminate against people. So, and then again, the sources are the different collections that were mentioned yesterday, Bukhari, and so on. Okay, God's act of compassion, another example. So here Abu Huraira, who again was mentioned yesterday as one of the closer companions of the Prophet and the transmitter of hadith, and also I think his name means the father of the cats, because Hirra in Arabic is another word for cat, and Huraira is little cat, so is the father of cats, or the little cat, little kitten. And this is a very lovely hadith that says that God, be He exalted, descends each night to earth, or to the sky, to the lower heaven. And He looks around and say, who's praying to me so I may answer the prayer? Who's asking something of me so I may give it? And who's asking forgiveness of me so that I may forgive him? And I was very impressed when I came to the States and started engaging in interfaith dialogues, and realized that in the Jewish tradition there is a similar idea. In Christianity, wake up at 3 and do some prayers, when everybody else is asleep. So there is something special about this 9th time when you're doing the prayers really for God. It's not for show, because here during the day I might go to the mosque and keep praying. So you'll say, oh wow, she's impressive, she prays so much. But at night nobody is seeing you. The same as with the fast, for example. The fast is something you do. It's between you and God, because nobody could really know whether you're really fasting or not. But it's something that God asks people to do for Him. Okay. So the hadith, sometimes you'll find variations of them, unless the Quran, like the Quran, you'll never find variation of, but in the hadith you might find the same story but narrated with some changes of words. So in a different story it could end with, and he continues till the light of dawn. Okay, supplication. In Arabic we say, Muslims, you'll always say they do their Salah. So Salah is the formal ritual prayer which we do, if you are a practicing Muslim, you'll do 5 times a day, and people could add to that when they follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. But also anytime, you're traveling, you're in bed, you're, doing some work, you can also ask God for things, for forgiveness, for anything you need. So that's called supplication. In Arabic, it's called dua. So dua and salah are different from each other. So this is the personal calling in God. And again, it's one way to help believers to try and get closer to God. I had again, some friends of mine from my interfaith group come to my house not too long ago, and one of them said, I've been out of work for 2 years now, and I'm tired, and finally I decided I'll ask God to help me. And, in Islam it's said that the Prophet used to ask for God's help with everything. If he wants to fix his shoes, it's like, God, please help me fix my shoes. If he needs some salt, there is nothing wrong with asking God to help you with every big and small matter and to guide you and so on. So this, when you're asking all the time, it's not because you're needy. And of course, you have to do your share. So you can't just say, I'll sit here and pray for water, and water would appear out of nowhere. There is a hadith that says, أَعْقِلْهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ, like do your share, and then God would do the rest. This is from a story that a companion came to the Prophet and said, I left my camel and she disappeared. And the Prophet said, did you tie her down to something? And he said, no, you said put your trust in God. And he said, no, but you have to do your share of work also. So, but God is, as was mentioned, He's closer than your jugular vein to you, and He's always there. If there is a room with 5 people, He's the 6th, and if there is 20, He's the 21st, and so on. So He's always there, He's always present everywhere.